So welcome everyone. This is the National Shared Housing Resource Center's second installment really of our webinars that we've been trying to do to educate and get people connected with potential home share programs. So this time we're going to be talking about home share outreach and marketing strategies. And we have a great panel of experts who are going to help us understand this topic much better. So a couple of housekeeping. This is a webinar, so we're going to be utilizing the Q&A function for questions. So if you can find it on your screen, it kind of looks like I've highlighted on the bottom of the screen here. Use that for questions that you have for the panelists or anything that you want to know for the topics that were being discussed. We're going to pause after each panelist and give opportunity for questions, and then again at the end. The chat feature we're using today just to share information for who's here. So if you would like to put in your contact information and for everyone to see, that would be great. It's good to see everybody. And then I'm asking that we don't use the raise hand feature because we're gonna be addressing questions at the end of each speaker. So hope that's okay. I'm not good at multitasking. I plain out may not see it. So please don't rely on that to reach out to us. So to start, we were going to do a poll, but I think I'm going to pause just another minute to see who else logs on. We're at 27 of about 61 people that were registered. So I think for an effective poll, it might be better to have a few more people who are here. So if you don't mind, there'll be a little bit of silence and give it another maybe 2 minutes to see who else comes on. So I'm going to get started. And we wanted to start this webinar off with a poll that asks just some general questions about where you are in the process in your home share program. So I'm going to launch it, and hopefully all of you are familiar with doing a poll on Zoom. Answer the questions. The only one that I might have a little bit of issue with, number 2, I have click all that apply. I'm not 100% sure that that's going to work. So try to click all that apply, but if you can only choose one, choose your best answer. I'm going to launch the poll, and we'll give it a few minutes for folks to answer. Okay. So we're going to share some results here. And can everybody see that on the screen? So where are you in your home share journey? And about 24% of you are just getting started. That's great. I'm glad you're here. And about 76% are affiliated with a larger organization. What has been the most effective strategies for home share in terms of marketing? Social media and websites are tied with 31%. Presentations to community groups and interested parties, word of mouth, both at 66%. Those are great numbers. Press releases, looks like it's a good way to market, and print advertising, 34%. And then the last question, where's your budget? Some of us have none. Some of us have a small budget up to $5,000, and then $5,000 to $20,000. So we wanted to do this because some of the information you're going to hear today will address some of these things, because most of us start with very, very small budgets if we have a budget at all. So hopefully we'll hear some ideas and tips on how to do that. I'm going to end this here, and we're going to continue with the rest of our presentations. So I'd like to do some introductions on who's here. The panelists that are here today, starting out with Deb Knox and Simon Strange from Tucson Home Sharing. They're going to talk about startups in home share, and they have a pretty new program down in Arizona. Celeste Goyer is the director of Smart Share Housing Solutions, and she's going to talk about some economical ways of marketing home share in her experience in doing that. And then Laura Fanucchi is going to be talking about, from HIP Housing, talking about continuing that campaign and continuing to market and manage through social media and other means. So that's going to be interesting. I'm Janet Hunko. I'm from the Housing Bureau for Seniors at Michigan Medicine, and I'm here just to kind of keep things rolling, I hope, and I'm doing okay with that. There's another person that you're going to see on the screen. Her name is Wendy Smith. It didn't think about putting her here, but she's going to be helping us navigate this. She's our administrative assistant at Housing Bureau for Seniors. So welcome, Wendy.
Thank you.
So with that, I am going to get started with, I got to do a plug why we're here. Let me talk about the reason that we're even doing this. Many of you, all of you have heard of the National Shared Housing Resource Center. And we decided to put these webinars together on a quarterly basis, just to make sure people understand and have a good knowledge base if they want to start a program, if they have an existing program going. There are benefits to the National Shared Housing Organization. It's $100 a year, and you get the benefits of being in a directory for across the nation for Homeshare programs. There's a book that the board has put together that gives you from A to Z on how to actually start a Homeshare program, all the way through to navigating matches and figuring out how to work on that in that way. It also is an excellent way to network, great opportunity to share information with other home sharing folks across the nation. I might be missing a couple things because my cheat sheet is hidden in all of these screens that I'm using here. But we are definitely going to have information for you afterwards. Definitely can look at the website, and you can check out possibly getting a membership to the National Shared Housing Resource Center. Okay. So with that, we're going to start with our presentations from Deb and Simon from Tucson Home Sharing. And they're going to talk about how to begin reaching out to the community. So Deb, just give me a nudge when you want me to move your slides, okay?
Okay, we're ready. You can move to the first slide if you want.
There
I
you
just
go.
want to take a minute and introduce Sharon Carter too, who's here. She's my housemate. If any of you have seen our story through our video, that would be Sharon. So, okay, we're thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for inviting us. Sharon and I started living together on August 17th, 2017, excuse me, 2017. We were introduced by two mutual friends. There was no home sharing program in Tucson. Sharon has Parkinson's disease and needed somebody to live in her house, cook dinner, sleep here in case she fell in the middle of the night. And that's what my friend passed on to me. Would I be interested? And I was at that stage of life when I was trying to get rid of my mortgage and wanting another professional pursuit to follow. Something to do with aging in place, something to do with aging well. I wasn't sure what it was going to be. So, second slide, please, Janet. Sharon and I were so passionate about our being together that we're both writers too, I must say. I have a writing group and she's in my writing group. We wrote a booklet called Elder Living Outside the Box that talked about our story. And we picked up on the word PCOA. PCOA was created by the Census Bureau back in the 70s. When people started living together, males and females, and they weren't married. So they didn't know how to report it to the IRS. So Sharon and I took the title, People of Opposite Sex Sharing Living Quarters, and changed it to People of Similar Sensibilities Sharing Living Quarters. And that passion has carried us a long way. Simon, you want to talk a little bit how that affected our growth?
Certainly. What we're going to talk about is that what we have in abundance is passion. when you listen to what Deb was saying there are a lot of people in our community who will tell us that they are pragmatic. They're actually sort of naysayers. And we have people like, I'll call him Bob, who would have looked over to Sharon and Deb and said, two little old ladies, one with Parkinson's disease, you know, they have a vision that they're going to be able to bring a home share program to Tucson, to the Arizona desert. I doubt it. Well, now we can fast forward. This is a spoiler alert because this is what actually happened. Within 4 years, what these two wonderful people have done because of their passion from home sharing is that they've been the catalysts for Tucson home sharing to have a partnership with one of the largest senior care organizations around, certainly in Pima County, Pima Council on Aging, to bring a home sharing program fully funded by 2022. It's an amazing accomplishment in terms of what they were doing. What we have is that before the funding came in this year, there was a local media storm here. It all started with Tucson Home Sharing, one of the board members, sent a short article that was printed in the quarterly newsletter of a Quaker organization. And again, Bob would say, well, big deal. But then that was picked up by a city council member and put into his weekly newsletter.
Simon, can I interrupt for a minute?
Sure.
Because you jumped ahead of my slides. Can you believe you did that?
I can't do that. Well, I understand.
I'm going to interrupt and talk a little bit more about our history, if that's okay. Could you show the next slide, Janet?
Okay.
In addition to publishing our little booklet, Elder Living Outside the Box, Sharon and I started talking to a number of elder groups. Number one, Tucson has had for the last 5 years an Elder Alliance. It is headed by Mark Clark, who is the president and CEO of Pima Council on Aging, and Judy Klinko, who has been a mover of mountains in Tucson. And she is our own advisor. So we had the support of this organization that was serving elders for the last 10 years, I guess. We presented to them, they were part of United Way. We presented at the Tucson TMC for seniors, probably about 40 people came to that. We presented to the professional staff at PCOA. They have a Neighbor Care Alliance, which hosts over 20 neighborhood programs providing meals and shopping, transportation to doctor's appointments and shopping. We presented to the Senior Pride group, the LGBTQ group. We presented to AARP staff and volunteers, and to some Parkinson's support group. So there was a lot of interest in hearing about the story. Did we get anybody who was interested in going to the next step? No. Next slide, please. So this is where the first phase of our media began. I want to recognize a woman in Vermont, Anna Marie Pluhar. She has a book called Sharing Housing, Finding and Keeping Good Housemates. I'm from New England originally, so I met Anna Marie early on. She has one of the best assessment surveys for people who don't have an existing program. We highly recommend her resources. The Wall Street Journal did a little plug on us. This was back in 2018, early. AARP did 2 articles online and in print. I think it was just the story, the sweetness of 2 old ladies. And then we got the call from the Pew Charitable Trust saying, can we come over and do a 10-hour shooting for a 5-minute video? And we said yes. So if you haven't seen it, there's the link, or you can find it on Facebook. Next slide, please. Okay, then in 2019, the City Council and the County Board of Supervisors held this doom and gloom meeting about the housing shortage that we were facing, which is now only worse, and that's what they were saying at the meeting. There were about 50 people attending. Armory Park is a senior housing center. One of our board members, George Mayers, was a major player in that whole event. And after all the doom and gloom was promoted, I stood up at the end. I had been pre-moted, you know, please, Deb, stand up and talk about home sharing. Nobody had done anything positive at all. And Simon?
Certainly. This is like it was like having a candle lit in a complete doom and gloom. Everything was about people being cost burdened. There were very, very sad stories. And all that the city was suggesting at that time was that they could make slight adjustments to help certain peoples. They talked a lot about how they have these wonderful places, but every one of them perhaps had like affordable care places for people, but there might be 60 people in these places with a waiting list for perhaps another 900. So it's like you need another 15 units like that. Deb's story about home sharing was so evocative. It made everything seem to be not about managing the problem, but actually creating a solution.
And so with that, Simon was willing to join us, and he's going to talk a few minutes now about the flexibility that being a small grassroots organization, how that can benefit a group that's just starting out.
Certainly. We had no budget. I'm not talking about no marketing budget. I'm talking about no budget whatsoever. So one of the things we needed to have in spades was flexibility. When you have no budget at all, you can be completely voiceless. There's no way of dealing with things, or else you are creatively flexible or perhaps flexibly creative. What we had was the video that Deb got. When I called they said, oh yes, we've got somebody coming over to make a video of us. And I thought, well, that's really nice. Some local high school senior is going to make a little subject matter. And they said, no, we're a national charity. It's a Pew Charitable Trust. And they're going to make this, which is a wonderful 5-minute video which is now, I don't know the numbers, but it's 350,000 plus views. The thing about it is that I still don't really understand the magic that gets them to have this happen. Again, it's the passion and the flexibility involved. We similarly, the flexibility within our organization, as we have no budget, is that when we finally had a plan last year, we decided to do backyard meetings for people interested in home sharing. We thought this was a great idea. And what we're going to do is do it in a specific zip code. We had these ideas. And of course, there was a naysayer, perhaps like Bob, going, yeah, well, have you heard about COVID? And we brushed them off. But of course, what happened was that we couldn't do any backyard meetings. Now, if we had had resources, we would have expended those resources. With having no resources, it was fairly easy for us to zigzag to Zoom. And this is what we did. One of the things we also had within our flexibility is that with no money, what you can do is you can have free things on the internet. You can get an email address, you can get a Facebook page, you can get the bare bones website. We cobbled this together. We are, of course, grassroots volunteers and seniors, and therefore we have the tech savvy of a 3-year-old, and even a pretty young 3-year-old at that. But what we could do is we could cobble this together like a lemonade stand. And we anticipated, well, we'll just put this up for now, and of course we'll do something about it. This lemonade stand has lasted for us for almost 2 years now. And what is great about it is that it does just about work. And we can make do. It's amazing what we can do, and being flexible enough to use whatever we have to keep ourselves going, to keep ourselves open and available.
Next slide, Janet. A part of our good fortune was, I mentioned Judy Klinko as our advisor. She managed to get some funding from an organization that probably half of Tucson knows about or nobody knows about, called the Industrial Development Authority, that was interested in civic ventures. The funding enabled PCOA to conduct a feasibility study. Now, some of the senior staff at PCOA have researched home sharing 4 or 5 years ago for another agency. They certainly weren't ready then. But this time, the feasibility study really took things to another level. The research person who conducted the study ended up calling it creating a culture of sharing, which is really what we think this is all about. By then, we had made some contact with NSHRC, but we certainly passed that on to Debbie Chess, and she researched 4 or 5 programs, included them in the study, and from there, PCOA was much more involved. Next slide, please.
And we're getting close on time.
We are. Okay, I'm going to go really fast. Affordable Housing Summit in 2021, where everything else was introduced, ADUs, tiny houses, zoning regulations, and I presented on home sharing and Debbie presented on the feasibility study. We met for a year. Next slide, please. We met for a year, 5 of us. I was going to talk a little bit about the Nucleus, monthly meetings on Zoom, just kind of moving things along. We did initiate some public gatherings. Maybe 5 to 10 people signed up. I've got some questions, still kind of slow, but beginning to make a presence. We established a 501c3. Then we had a little bit more media. This is what Simon was talking about, ending with a front page article in the Arizona Daily Star and 3 newspaper articles. Do you want to take it from here in terms of the Nucleus, or are we really out of time?
To keep going, we have a couple more minutes.
We have a couple of more minutes. But okay, I'll wrap it up by saying the city of Tucson, and again, Simon was kind of on top of this. He'd reached out to the planning development department of the city. And so could we have the next slide, please? Next slide. There we go. The city of Tucson awarded PCOA $50,000. In the last month, the county board of supervisors met once. They couldn't approve it. They wanted more information. We got about 50 letters submitted at that time of support for this. The following month, when they did vote on it, they got another 50 letters. And so they were up and running. So we have received money from a local church, and we also managed to receive a grant from AARP. So we got some money now. We're going to create a website that hopefully will be featured soon on the National Shared Housing. And we will have a program that is run by Pima Council on Aging, and we will continue our Nucleus promoting education, outreach, and advocacy for home sharing. Thank you very much.
That's great. Before we get started for our next presenter, do we have any questions for anyone for Deb and Simon for their, if you do, please add it to the chat, or I'm sorry, add it to the Q&A. Any questions at all? All right, that's great information to have. I actually love the fact that you were doing, oh, here's one. What if you don't have a starter story? So this is a question. You have a great starter story, and maybe this is for our other panelists as well, or the question is, what if you don't have a starter story? What is the suggestion?
I can jump in there.
Sure.
We were in that position at Homeshare SLO in San Luis Obispo County, California. We did not have a starter story, but one of our staffers, basically we were volunteers at that point, knew somebody who was a neighbor and a friend who was in a home share organization, and I mean a home share match, and they very sweetly offered to be our couple housemates to be publicized. So that was key. We could have their picture and the press could talk to them. Even though we didn't make the match, we had something we could show, and it's super helpful. It's likely somebody you know who's similar to the demographic you want to serve will be willing to do that for you if you let them know how important it is.
Thank you, Celeste.
Looking at the websites on NSHRC, everyone had a starter story. So yeah, it's happening. You just got to find it.
Mhm. Excellent. Any other questions for Deb or Simon? All right. So let's move on to Celeste. And Celeste is the director of the, I've got too many screens open here, of Smart Share Housing Solutions. And I will let her give a little bit more information about herself and her programming. And you are going to share your own slides, correct?
Yep. Thanks, everybody, for coming, and thanks, Janet, for organizing. And congratulations to the Tucson group. So impressive. Your story is heartwarming and uplifting, and I just loved hearing the details of how you made it happen. Just an awesome story. So my organization, the umbrella name is Smart Share Housing Solutions. Our home sharing group is called Homeshare Slow, and that was the program that we started with. Later, we formed Smart Share Housing Solutions to be the nonprofit. That's the 501c3 nonprofit. And I just want to start with, what do you need to do effective marketing? So before you even start, and probably you've looked at these things because you're thinking about starting a home share group, but what is the need in your area? Are there high housing costs? Are wages low? Do you have a lot of people on fixed incomes? Are there isolated seniors who could use companionship? Are there students? So what is the need? Understand it well enough to talk about it. And then client stories are the best way to illustrate how home sharing fills that need, as we've discussed. You can say abstract things, you can bring up percentages, and it's not going to compel people the way a story does, but you probably know that. And then, as was mentioned, a matched set of housemates who are willing to talk is super important at the beginning. If you don't have one, find one. So just to share a screen now and show you ours. Here they are. They sweetly agreed to be our cute as anything first housemates. And indeed, the gal on the left is pretty much a lifelong home sharer who has gone from situation to situation. She just doesn't want to live in one place forever. But they were just so much help to us. Okay, so the lowest cost marketing I'm going to talk about, because there's always a cost, even if it is just staff cost or volunteer time. There's no such thing as really free marketing. Somebody's time is involved, generally a lot of it. So we started with press releases. And here's just an example of one of our press releases. And there's some things I just want to highlight about how a successful press release can be thought about. And I call it the who, when, what, where phenomenon. So who is important? Who are you going to send this to? There are services that'll send it out and plaster it all over everywhere, places that are not appropriate. We have never used one of those. We look for people who write about housing in the local outlets where we want to appear, where we think it would be helpful for us to appear. Writers do sort of specialize. These days there aren't very many writers, but they'll cover a lot of topics. Find those writers who write sympathetic articles about housing need. And then when to send it. At launch of your program, at launch of new programs. Here I sent it out in talking about program changes and new programs as COVID made changes to how we could operate. And then the what. The what is more about putting yourself in the chair of that writer. Their job is to create newsworthy stories. And what is news? News is a story that is important to the people who read that paper, so it has value. So that's going to be general interest. If you're too much of a niche topic, it's unlikely you're going to get a story. Now, let me just say, if you live in a smaller town, you're ahead of the game because there are fewer news stories out there and you're more likely to get press coverage. But Tucson is not a small town, and you guys did really well to get that front page coverage, so I congratulate you on that. The thing is that people do seize on solutions. They want to highlight solutions and not just problems, so that's in our favor. Okay, so what else is the what? What can you talk about? At launch, your new program is exciting news. When you have proof of concept, when you have established that it succeeds. And then when you have a big event, don't bother them with your little small events, but general interest, big events. In general, save your press release work for those times when you are pretty sure you're going to find interest in the press. Don't pester people with small stories all the time. Know the value to their readers and hit them with those and not the others. Don't stress about writing the press release. They're going to change everything anyway. What they really want is to talk to your match clients, whether that's a newspaper reporter or have the TV crew come. They're going to get the story. They're going to get the story in their own way. So don't stress about it being brilliant writing. Don't forget radio stations. Radio stations are a wonderful way to publicize yourself. Because there are hosts who do regular shows, they're hungry for topics and people to be on there. So hit those public radio stations and other talk radio. Have your match clients call in during the, during the call-in segment. Arrange to have some of them call in and talk about how wonderful it is, if they're willing. Okay, so these are some successes that we've had with press releases. This was when we launched our new reduced rent task exchange program. So we had good luck because it was a positive story of how we were dealing with COVID. Okay, so the other final thing about press releases, have a clear goal for each press release. It's tempting to throw a bunch of stuff in that, thinking you're going to have the ear of someone. Keep it focused. All right, but they're free and it can be wonderful coverage. Well, except for the hours and hours you'll sweat over it. Okay, so onto flyers. Flyers can be done in black and white, cheaply. This is the color version. It looks just great in black and white. Harness your volunteers, have them adopt bulletin boards in their area and close to them. Bulletin boards need regular maintenance and visits. To keep putting up new versions, people will tear them down pretty much immediately, but it's worth it. So coffee shops, public bulletin boards. And also what we do, since we don't have an office, is we have gatherings. We used to, before COVID, we're just reestablishing them, had gatherings in coffee shops that had a big patio or big spaces that we can push tables together. This is one of our coffee chat gatherings. We had them 4 times a month around the county. And if they're on regular days, it's easier to publicize them, but you're not going to get it into the paper every time. So do the best you can. Try to remember to tell people on the phone, call up. You might want to join our next coffee chat gathering. That way, folks who are doing their first touch, learning about home sharing, have somewhere to go. That's no pressure, that can drop in. We are very sparing with print outreach. We just can't afford it. But we did get a small grant to do our first direct mailer. This was the second side. Another program was on the first side. And it was actually pretty effective because we targeted the demographic through every door direct mailing nonprofit service provider. We used addressers, and it was pretty darn cheap, about 50 cents each for a jumbo postcard, color both sides, and that included printing and the mailing list. So we've gotten good response. We've had quite a few providers from it. Okay, so a couple other points. A lot of you mentioned you've had good luck with service clubs, so I'm not going to go touch on that, except go ahead and ask for donations too, ask for volunteers, ask for whatever you want, in addition to getting the word out about what you do and who's a good referral, so they can tell their neighbors who might be great fit for your program. But their networks go everywhere into the community, so service groups are great. Also, pairing with groups that have a similar demographic is great, who serve your similar demographic. For instance, any other elder serving groups. They often have regular meetings. Their networks go out into the community. And the Villages Network, which is a virtual network where there are volunteers who go help people. That's a wonderful source. Same clientele as ours for the most part. There's probably a branch in your area. So what else have we got here? Let's see, flyers, okay, coffee chats, postcard. So it all boils down to this, the happy matches. And having a photo release as part of your application is key. So you don't have to introduce the topic later. Right at the beginning when they're applying, they'll say that, yes, you can use my picture. Yes, you can use it, but only with initials. Yes, I'm happy to help out with promotion. As we all know, it's a challenge for people to appear publicly as part of a home share group. The culture of sharing, we hope, will spread and people will become more and more willing to say, yes, this is a solution that works. Yes, this is a positive reality now that can help us. So the last thing I want to end with is that if you're part of a larger organization, as our poll indicated many people are, we're a standalone. And as Simon said, we have flexibility, we can move quickly, we don't have to consult a lot of other people when we do that. There are challenges too. But if you're part of a larger organization, make sure the board, make sure their volunteers and staff know the name of your program, know who you serve, and can give an elevator pitch. Because I can't tell you how many times even people who work with us stumble over our name. Are we Smart Share Housing Solutions? Are we Home Share Slow? What's the relationship between them? You know, who do we serve exactly? If you're part of a bigger group, make sure you know their mission and you know their mission and they know yours, because they're in a position to be ambassadors for you. So that's it. You're out there doing the work. You know the challenges. Always ask for those providers, because you can only make as many matches as you have providers. And the word of mouth awareness in the community, the more it goes out, talk to as many groups as you can, because those providers will get the word that there is a program to help them. And I think that's all. Have fun. It's a wonderful thing to share. And remember, you're giving information that helps, so don't feel shy about putting yourself forward with what you do.
Thank you, Celeste. And there is a question in the Q&A. Did I hear, and this is from Michelle Higgs, did I hear that if you don't have your own starter story, you find a friendly party to help out?
Yes, and you may not have you won't have matched them, but it is important that they not look like, but their demographic resembles who you're after, because this is going to be shared in the press. If you deal mostly with senior to senior home share matches, or that's where you imagine the need is, and you're showing two students, or you're showing a student and an elder, and you're not focused on that, or it's important to pick if you can, to pick your friendly starter couple of housemates as reflecting who you're serving or who you want to serve.
Thank you. Any other questions for Celeste? If you could put them in the chat. And while we're waiting, I actually have a question, and I can't put it in the chat because I'm the host. I have two questions. One of them is about the picture you just took off the slide. I noticed that you have some families appearing to be families in the matches, and does that happen a lot? And the other question I'm interested to hear more about, who actually attends your coffee sessions?
I'll answer the last one first. The coffee chats are attended by providers who are just dipping their toe in and thinking about doing this. It's super helpful for them to see others who are interested in the program, to see the seekers who come. We get a lot of seekers because people are looking for housing solutions very urgently, obviously in high need areas. So to have providers and seekers see each other and see, oh, that's not a monster, I could potentially live with that. Okay. We've had matches start in coffee chats. So yeah, and then community members, people are thinking about volunteering. Sometimes our board members will come to learn more. They're very helpful, or they were. We're having to rebuild that, as everyone is.
Mhm.
And then the first question was around, I'm sorry, Deb, or Janet.
Yeah, just about it looked like you had some family matches.
Sorry. No, not common at all. Generally, it's
Okay.
someone living there alone. This was a family that took in actually a graduate student.
Okay.
But generally, you know, it's with us as others, it's one seeker, one provider.
Great, thank you. There's one other thing, another comment from Michelle. How can you reach into homeowners or neighborhood associations to find owners who are interested in your coffee chats?
Well, we find someone in the neighborhood, like a board member who, or a volunteer who's part of that, who has their address in the right neighborhood. And as many people as possible in those neighborhood groups posts notices of our coffee chats. You can post an event in there, and that helps. But I think also that Laura's going to address that too.
Great, thank you. All right, and we need to move on with Laura. So Laura Fanucchi is our next speaker. She's going to share her slides as well. So I'm not going to show her title slide, but she has her logo right in back of her. Laura is the Associate Executive Director for HIP Housing in San Mateo, California. And I really look forward to hearing what Laura has to say because I've learned so much through her through the years. She's also a board member for the National Shared Housing Resource Center. And go ahead, Laura, it's all yours.
Okay, great. Welcome, everyone. As Janet mentioned, I am the Associate Executive Director of HIP Housing. We're based in San Mateo County, California. We are a standalone nonprofit. We have 4 programs: information and referral, our self-sufficiency program for families with children. We also own and manage 28 properties of low-income housing and subsidized housing in our county. But what we're really known for is our home sharing program, which has been in our community now for over 40 years. This is how we did outreach back in the day, okay? We had an outreach van, or a really spiffy Just Ask HIP Housing van. We took it out on the road. We had a card table, and we had some volunteers that went out in the community and talked about home sharing. It was very scary driving that van, by the way. And this is where we are today. You know, we are one of the larger home sharing programs. So our budget size for our marketing outreach efforts is quite large, and we're very fortunate to have that large funding stream because about 6 years ago, the county initiated a sales tax initiative and called Measure K. And as a result of that, we are a grantee of Measure K funding through our county to really provide 3 aspects to our marketing campaign for home sharing. And that is to hire, we have a dedicated outreach specialist. The funding also provides funding to do marketing activities. And lastly, our incentives that we provide to home providers. So, I mean, they've been mentioned already. I mean, a lot of what our outreach specialist does is get out to the community and do presentations, and now we're doing them via Zoom. And I think, you know, really our most effective presentations are really to service groups, nonprofits, and usually our health, you know, like the health fairs that we attend, or community fairs that we attend. So we meet potential clients that way, because a lot of our referrals do come from other nonprofits, other service clubs like the Villages, like senior groups, like AARP. And so keeping that up has been really critical for our outreach efforts. And as you can see, I have one of our Zoom backgrounds. So because we're doing everything virtually, we created a couple of Zoom backgrounds, just really free, easy way to get your name out there and any presentation that you might be doing virtually. So that's something that we've been doing now for the last year and a half. And then some of the kind of easy, free activities that we regularly do. We create a one-page flyer every month. One of the flyers lists some of our available home provider rooms. and the other lists some of our available home seekers. And so we make that flyer available through a large email distribution list of faith-based community, our city partners, school districts, health, hospital districts, libraries, the villages, homeowners associations, just about any email address we can find, they're getting this. And we also post it on our website, and we also post it through our patch network, which is sort of like neighborhood-based email blasts, and also on nextdoor.com, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. I titled the next thing Shark Tank. So our county's human resource department reached out to us to say, hey, we want to promote your home sharing program to our current employees and also our retirees. So we have a dedicated page on their human resource website about Hip Housing's home sharing program. And then we also host like little lunch and learns. We do them virtually now, where we invite retirees from the county and also employees to learn a little bit more about our program. So now that we have that established, and that's relatively new, we're going to be taking that on the road with our other cities in our county, which we have 20. So we're going to be marketing that way. We've already, a lot of mentioning, Celeste mentioned like community bulletin boards. This is where your volunteers and interns can really help, because you can't be the eyes and ears of every single area that you're covering. So we have some collaborations for volunteers through Cal State East Bay, which is one of the state colleges. They have an internship program for several students where actually the school provides a stipend, and then the students contribute about 100 hours during the summer to a nonprofit. So we have had that collaboration for a couple of years now. We also work with our local Peninsula Family Service organization. They have a older adults employment program, which is a federally subsidized program. And so we have an intern from that program as well, who helps us sort of be the eyes and ears of what's going on in the community and how we can post flyers and do outreach that way. So these are some of the larger scale activities that our funding pays for, our marketing budget pays for. They're quite expensive, but they are very visual. I think probably the least expensive out of all of them is a street banner. So we created this street banner. It cost us about maybe $1,500. And so we're able to hang it over, this is downtown Burlingame Avenue. The city waives the hanging fee for us because we're a nonprofit, and they usually keep it up for about 2 weeks. And then we can rotate it to another location in the city and to hang it as well. So this is one of, I think, out of all of these, one of the least expensive of all of these particular outreach activities. So we've done, our flyer. We also translate that into Spanish. We've scoured our community to find some electronic billboards, also billboards on the highway. And we also do Valpak ads. So these are like sort of the free mailers that come into the mail, and they have coupons in them. We try to get our ad on the outside of the envelope in case people decide not to open the envelope. At least they see it's on the outside. And then they have our insert on the inside as well. One of the recent advertisings that we've been doing is on our Samtrans bus routes. So this is considered like a King Kong ad, where it covers the majority of the bus. And then lastly, we have shopping cart ads that we put onto various shopping carts. We have a contract with various vendors, and they sometimes don't take them down, so we get them a little bit longer than what we pay for. For social media, we do a lot on Nextdoor and actually Craigslist. So these are just easy ways to post information about your programs. On Craigslist, we put our ad, we create an ad, and then we talk a little, just give like a generic description of some of our home providers or some of our home seekers, and then we generate some inquiries that way. On nextdoor.com, if you have that neighborhood-based website, we actually contract, not contract, but we have a collaboration with our county. The county's social media coordinator posts on all the Nextdoor accounts through our county. So we have 20 cities in our county, and hundreds of Nextdoor accounts. So we have that posted quarterly, but we also monitor nextdoor.com to see who's posting their room for rent, and then we private message them. And then we also monitor who's seeking housing and private message them as well. And sometimes we don't private message, we just give the message out to everybody so they can learn a little bit more about what we do. So we get a lot of referrals really through Nextdoor and Craigslist. Of course, we have our Facebook page where we might post a story about one of our clients. And I'll just briefly mention a little bit about our incentive program. So lastly, the county funds our organization by providing an incentive to home providers who match with a housemate 90 days after the housemate moves in. They also provide us with an incentive if the home provider keeps their rent at $1,000 or less. And in our new contract, we're actually going to have a referral incentive. So if a home provider refers another home provider to our program, they're also going to get an incentive, and that's a $250 incentive. So how did people hear about us? So these are our stats of clients who, like new people who've contacted our organization, not clients that have used our program before. About 45% of our callers are hearing about our organization through our website or the other social media outlets like our Facebook page and everything. 19% for the outreach activities, 15% are like heard from friends or family members, 11% on Craigslist, Nextdoor, other kinds of social media accounts, and then 10% like agencies and the social workers that we do our presentations for. So these are some of our links to our social media pages, and I was going to show you a few of them really quickly. I know we're running low on time, so let's see here. This is our YouTube page. Has all of our agency videos posted up on our YouTube page. Of course, our website. We do have a website inquiry form that clients, we get a lot of referrals, like I said, from our website and from this inquiry form. This is our Instagram page. So we have information about our home sharing program and also our properties. This is our home sharing page. So just talking a little bit about what we do and showing lots of photos. Our Facebook page, we did already. And also LinkedIn. We have a LinkedIn account, and we want to start posting our information about our program on LinkedIn. So we're actually doing that right now with our properties, and we're getting a lot of feedback from that. So we're going to start doing that on our LinkedIn page. So that is some of the outreach that we do, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And thank you so much for joining us today.
You're muted, Janet.
Sorry about that. I say that
It's okay.
1,000 times a day. Is it a monthly incentive of $250?
It's a one-time incentive. So, right. So they get it 90 days after they match with the housemaid. The referral incentive is going to work a little bit differently. We're still fleshing that out, but we're going to be starting that with the start of our new fiscal year next week.
Nice, nice. That was from Carmen Castro Conroy. Thank you, Carmen. And Jean Cohen asks, for programs who focus on seniors, do you ever market to their adult children?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we also, reach out to human resource departments of companies in our area so thinking about employees who are caring for their parents and trying to market the program that way. And that's also with our collaboration with the county in the human resource department. That's kind of the avenue that we take in that regards, or like support groups as well, as Deb and Simon mentioned.
That's great. Any other questions for Laura?
I have one. On that incentive question, is it an additional incentive if the rent is kept below 1,000?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Would you share what that is? How much?
They're $250 incentives.
So they get 500 if they keep the rent low.
Yeah, they could. Mm-hmm. The referral incentive is going to be less. It's going to be about 150. So we're going to pilot that for 6 months and see how that goes in terms of generating more providers to the program.
Thank you. We actually have a couple more questions. If everybody's okay on time, we are running a little bit over. Diane Troutman, how does your intake process affect marketing?
So our intake process, I think by having the website inquiry on our website, it has really helped people through the intake process because they become more familiar with what we're doing and how we're marketing the program. And now, we're doing most of all of our interviews through Zoom. So in terms of like having this Zoom background, it's really beneficial for clients that we're interviewing to see that. And it has been a little bit of a challenge in terms of doing our interviews and screening via Zoom because we're normally an in-person group. But overall, it's been going very well, and the marketing through social media and through technology we haven't slowed down in that aspect.
And then one final question from Hannah Brady. For brand new programs, what would you say are the 2 to 3 most effective streams to use for home providers?
Mm-hmm. Well, Deb and Simon may have more feedback on that, but yeah, I would say, gaining first, maybe getting contacts through local organizations, other nonprofits, other senior groups, or other groups that you're focusing on your marketing is a great first step.
Great. And I think that's going to take us to the end because we are running a few minutes over. Thank you to our panelists. You guys did a great job. I love it. I always learn something new. And thank you for everybody who attended. And I hope you see up on the screen the National Shared Housing.org website. Please check it out. Please consider becoming a member. And I think Deb and Simon talked about this, and we all have benefited from being a member of this organization. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to anyone on the board, and we'll be happy to answer any questions. And with that, we're going to say thank you very much for attending, and see you next time. Look out for another invitation for another webinar coming up next quarter. Take care, everybody.